I like being in a storm when we're in the marina.
I know. Normally, this would be a really stressful situation.
I know.
Hey, do you want to go see if the anchor's holding? Nope.
I hope we don't get struck by lightning.
We're tied up. We could still get struck by lightning, though.
Yeah.
No
That's
joke
true.
there.
That would, to sink in the slip would be a little bit.
Don't even say that. Not like I'm superstitious or anything.
But it's crazy. We got fireworks coming tomorrow, but starting early. So, welcome to Under the Sheets.
Is this the podcast or is this our marriage saving tips?
Well, we're going to do marriage saving tips on video and then more behind the scenes. I think we do a podcast right after this.
So we should be organized. This is going to be the video part.
Oh, yeah.
So when we were uploading the last couple of videos, we got a lot of comments, I guess remarking about, well, you guys have been doing this for a long time.
It's exciting.
Did you hear this?
We aren't planning this.
Dum, dum, dum. You guys have been doing this for a long time, and with the last video, we were sharing some of our trials and tribulations and new mistakes, which at the time were kind of stressful. A lot of them were very stressful, and yet we survived that as a relationship. And we're on cruise number 3, boat number 4. So what are our relationship tips, hints, secrets? Am I on the right track?
And I think also this is kind of inspired because we just celebrated 27 years together.
Go us. Yeah.
Which is so hard to believe.
It's hard to believe that we're that old.
I know.
Oh,
so we were 19 when we got together, but we knew each other since we were 12.
Yeah, since 6th grade, we've known each other, friends in high school, and then we got together in college, and nobody else would tolerate us, so we're stuck with each other. No, obviously I've given a lot of thought to relationships on board. I wrote a book called Get Her on Board, because frequently the setup is this. This lightning's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's cool. I hope that it shows up on the camera.
I think it is. I mean, frequently it's his idea, not always, but frequently it's his idea, and he comes to his wife, his spouse, and says, "Hey, honey, what do you say we sell it all and sail away?" So I've given this quite a bit of thought, but after a lot of miles, a lot of mistakes made, I think we can make we have some general topic discussions. First of all, about what makes being on a boat together particularly difficult on a relationship, or the stressors unique to the sailing lifestyle, the cruising lifestyle, and then maybe some tips and hints about how to deal with those special challenges.
Well, I have a question for you first.
Okay.
Do you think a relationship with me is harder on a boat or easier? I'm really curious to hear what he has to say.
Well, overall, it's probably harder, but it's also much more rewarding than life on land. So it's just you're in a confined space. It's all the things that people have heard about and talked about forever and ever and ever, but I don't know, what would you say about me?
Well, I think that it may be easier because we're so in sync with what's going on in our environment, and not that we're not always in alignment, we get off track, but at least we have like a really comprehensive understanding of what's going on. So we're spending a lot of time together, and I'd say overall it is a different sort of challenge, like in a pressure cooker way sometimes, but overall I'd say it's easier to be in a relationship.
Actually, okay, I'm going to rewind, and I get what you're saying, and I would agree.
So I think that what we want to say is you would think that the top stressors of being on a boat and being in a relationship would be around money and then being in small spaces.
That's what you would think.
You would think. Now, granted, we have more space now.
That's true.
So
it's
let's just say, for us right now, the top stressors are not money and space. It has to do, number one, with indecision.
Yes.
And as Nick said once, cruising, it should be called "Let's Go Decisioning." Because you're literally moving your entire home around, maybe sometimes every day, several times a day, every few days, every week. And that can be stressful because you have to make a plan.
Not can be stressful, and this is not unique to us. I've spoken to other couples, and it's the exact same thing. Because of the nature of cruising, which is you have this infinite freedom with some constraints. You are always thinking about the next anchorage, next week. Where does that put us for next month? Where are we in the cruising season? How's our multi-year plan going? And there's always this future orientation. It's not a bad thing. This is where you have to be.
This is the freedom.
This is the nature of it.
Yeah, so it's like you maybe think you have all this endless freedom, but the reality is you do have freedom, but you have to plan a certain amount, and then you have to be ready to abandon the plan.
Yeah. Yes.
So you have to be ultimately flexible. So we just say number one is dealing with indecision.
Indecision is it's something unique to the cruising lifestyle compared to quote unquote normal life, because in normal life there's routine.
Yeah.
There's regimen.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about, hey honey, where do you want to take the house next week? Hey honey, should we move 50 miles for next year's change in the weather?
I know.
That's not part of, but in this lifestyle, decision making is continuous, constant, and that is a dialogue that you end up having as a married couple.
And not to mention, in a house, who cares what the weather is?
Yeah.
Unless the furnace goes out.
Honey, is it raining? I don't even know.
So number two, we would say would be boat breakdowns. So any kind of, unexpected, you're disabled in some way, you are stuck.
Right.
And, that could be for an hour or a week or 2 weeks, or longer.
And that may be because of something that's happened. This thunderstorm is pretty crazy.
Then one of the next episodes is going to be on lightning. Hopefully it's not about this today.
Hopefully not. Have we unplugged all the computers?
Yeah.
But this being stuck or at the mercy of some other force outside of your own control is another stressor. It doesn't mean that necessarily your boat broke down, but like last December we were on the Hard. We had been raised out of the water by this contraption, this trailer in St. Augustine. They raised us out of the water, and then that contraption broke down. And so our 10-day haul out turned into 5 weeks.
Oh my God. And we were living on board.
We were living on the board.
Oh my God. Carrying our dish water to a sink. Okay, the hardest part about living on the Hard is the dishes. So here's Nick. Since we're down, we've been using our water tanks for 3 weeks. Now he's gonna walk all the way across the boatyard to do some dishes. There he goes. Round the truck. Round the puddles.
Yeah.
500 feet away.
A sink. That's painting a nice picture of
I know.
it. So anyway, there will be these circumstances that come about because, some instruments broke down, like happened to us in Puerto Rico, and you will be at the mercy of forces. Weather actually is another one.
Say weather.
You will be not able to have that freedom that we talked about in number one, and you'll be stuck.
Yeah.
And that can be a stressor on the relationship because it's not what you got this boat for. You didn't get it to sit there and work on it or be stuck in a boatyard. So that's the second stressor on a relationship that is unique to the cruising lifestyle. What about the next one?
Another one is kind of, pigtails with this one is expectations.
Yes.
So it's, I guess, just setting what do they say? Expectations or planned disappointments.
That's
I think
very
that's
accurate,
really good. And it's hard because you have to have certain expectations going into it so that you're prepared. It's just
inspired.
It's a dance,
Yes.
So, but if you are expecting the cruising lifestyle to be all sunshine and rainbows, then you're going to be disappointed.
Yes.
And that goes for if you expect your boat to work perfectly, if you expect the weather, a certain anchorage, maybe even the social situations out there. I mean, it can be anything.
Yes.
Check your expectations.
And how that impacts the relationship is that you may not have the same expectations.
May not.
Probably don't. One of you could be like, you know what, we've done a ton of socializing, we've been buddy boating for weeks.
Yeah.
One of you may be like, let's go on our own. And the other person could be like, no, I want to hang out with the friends. And you're tied together because you're on this boat and your plan is my plan, is our plan, which changes all the time. So expectations and staying on the same page for what you want.
Yeah. So you can see how communication is critical. The next one, the last one we thought that really bubbled to the top was it's natural to be bummed out from time to time from any of these things that we've just covered, for example.
Or also just in normal life. And you know what? This gets into a bigger topic about societal expectations, but I think that part of being a human being is sometimes you're super excited about everything and sometimes you're bummed out about things, and that's okay.
And you may not even know why. Maybe you had a dream. Maybe, you just...
who knows?
So the point is that it's okay to be bummed, but then getting bummed about being bummed is that's what we want to say is like one of the stressors, because you have maybe these, again, expectations that you should be flowing and everything's great, and then you have this little dip, and then I know I could get bummed for being bummed about that.
And how this manifests in the cruising lifestyle is, okay, you've made all these sacrifices. It was difficult to get out here. You saved money for a long time. You worked hard on this boat. You battled the weather to get to this beautiful place with the perfect beach. It's perfectly white sand and you've got crystal clear blue waters. And for some reason, you're not feeling it that day. And then all of a sudden, you're bummed about being bummed and you're like, oh my God, did we make a mistake? What? Then you're bummed about being bummed.
Yeah, and you came up with this analogy. It's like if you're in your house and your furnace goes out, it's freezing cold out, you're bummed, right?
Right.
And that's the difference would be you don't go, okay, well, I think we should move.
Right. The furnace went out, so to hell with this whole thing.
Yeah.
We
never get bummed about being bummed about your furnace. You just go, you know what? That's normal.
Yeah. I mean, you can get bummed about being bummed in regular life too, but you're just so much more susceptible on board because, and part of it could be all this social media stuff. You're seeing these videos of people living perfect lives on these perfect boats in these perfect places, and then you're out there doing it yourself, and you're like, honey, do you feel like there's something... Anyway, that one's a little hard to define, and it's very, very individual, but that is something unique.
Let's talk more about that on the podcast, because I'm having more thoughts about it that are coming up.
Idea.
So we want to get into the how to keep your cool when these stressors happen.
Yeah, so those were the unique relationship stresses that you have, or that we think you have in doing...
We have. Other people have other ones.
You may have different ones, but what we have on board. And so now we're going to shift gears and talk about some of the, I guess, preventative steps or helpful tips somehow.
How we get through that.
Yeah.
And, this is our third, we've done 3 seasons on Clarity.
On this boat,
And so I feel like I can even see my own evolution of this.
Okay.
And so that's what I feel really confident in sharing these learnings. So
I need to learn.
the number one is just get perspective. Whatever's happening, just get perspective. And you had a good one about, you check 2 things first. You remember?
No.
So, okay, let's say, because you're on a boat, you're self-sufficient, you're out there in nature, it's wild. So, number 1, are we safe?
Oh,
is it
yeah. First thing you got to check on with this perspective thing is, am I uncomfortable or am I in danger? Mm-hmm. And there is a huge difference between being in danger and being uncomfortable, like, oh, I didn't get a good night's sleep because it was so rolly, or the weather was bad, or something like that. So shift gears if you're feeling stressed out. Is the fight about, I don't know, just say the dishes or something, is it really that big a deal? Yeah. Get some perspective. Yeah. That will help.
And then the other thing would be just take care of your physical state, and that can be with exercise. Are you hungry, hangry, low blood sugar? Are you overstimulated? Are you sleep deprived? And that's a quick checklist to go, oh, okay, that'll help me get perspective. I am sleep deprived. I haven't eaten that great.
No, this is not her first
Cookie Monster.
You're witnessing an addict in action.
I really do need to jump in the water and go swimming. So,
and these are all things that are an extra challenge in the live aboard lifestyle, because when the weather's like this, if we were at anchor, and I would probably be on anchor watch, not getting a lot of sleep
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
Eating well on board that's another podcast
I know,
discussion.
that's a video.
That's a lot harder than you'd think, is
Yeah.
to keep that good nutrition when you're away from the grocery
Yeah.
stores. Exercise, dum dum dum. Can you hear the thunder? The exercise thing, sometimes you're getting tons of workouts every day because you're spearfishing, and then you're paddle boarding, and then you're just swimming around the boat, and then you're working on the boat. And then there's other times where the water's cloudy, the weather's terrible, and oh, hi, Sugar. Come on down and join us.
We put a barricade up so Sugar couldn't get through, but she made it. So that means she's doing good.
She's scared of the lightning. It's okay, buddy.
So that just is like the first step. It's like you're having any kind of these stress, just check yourself.
Interpersonal
You know,
stress,
just
yeah.
say, let's get some perspective here.
Take care of
And
yourself
I would
first,
throw
yeah.
in, you know what, sprinkle some gratitude in there. That always
Yes.
helps. That's going to be our main key thing.
It's easy
But-
to lose touch with feeling really, really grateful about, you know, this crappy old boat or this crummy anchorage or whatever you have got in your mind as being a really big problem here. You can flip that script really
Yeah.
quick and go, oh, wait, I am out cruising.
And literally-
I'm not working at the office, and I've got my boat, and I can go anywhere I want and just get grateful
Yeah.
about how privileged you are to have clean water, to have clean food.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can sit there and think of a million things of what to be grateful for. Like that's not
Yeah.
hard. You're breathing, you know, your spouse, your family, etc. And I think that it's true. You cannot hold a like thought and feeling of gratitude and being bummed at the same time. Like
It's really-
you might
it's
go in and
very
out,
difficult.
but like if you just that's why if you focus and practice on that, I think that's huge. I also decided 10 months ago to cut out coffee, regular coffee. I would have a couple cups a day, and I realized like I'm a morning person. I don't need that extra. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And so I switched to decaf, and I had done that over several times, and like I'd try it for a month. I'd run out of decaf. I'd go back to regular. Finally, I was like, you know what? I need to just go to decaf. I'm not being deprived. I get the same flavor, the same pleasure, and I feel so much calmer.
I,
So-
on the other hand, have a hard time remembering to breathe if I don't have enough caffeine.
Yeah,
So
he needs it.
I definitely need
And
to
yeah.
go to bed.
So another tip would be is take a break and don't focus on boat related things. So even
Yes.
though it's hard sometimes because you are on a boat and it feels like
always
it's
needs
hard
something, yeah.
well, not even just that, even if it's working, it's hard to just get your mindset out of being on a boat. And so really having hobbies that you love and that you can bring with you on your boat. For me, the sewing room, you're making music,
Yeah.
making these videos, that's another huge one. Writing, I have a writing practice every day. So just focus on non-boat related.
Non-boat related and non-couple
Yes.
related things.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to go make music and you go sewing or
see you at
writing.
dinner.
I'll see you a little bit later. That having something besides this shared project, which is boating and cruising, and being able to step away here and there,
Yeah.
really, really healthy. And you come back fresh and, oh, honey, check out this track I just made. And then you're like, hey, look at this dress I made. And then it's like, oh, yeah, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. So bring back some new information to the tribe.
Right.
Mix it up.
Right.
So I think another one that's huge, and obviously we've done this well, I'd say over 27 years that we're still together,
Yeah.
is prop each other up when somebody's having a hard time. And they don't have to, ideally they don't have to explain why they are. If they want to talk about it, great, but like, just don't try to go into solution mode.
Which is
so hard.
It's a natural orientation because we're always solving some sort of problem or question about which way, how much anchor scope to put out. Well, that one was close. Just there's always questions to be answered.
Well,
So
you want to help people.
you want to help people, but sometimes when somebody's feeling down, just be there to listen.
Yeah.
That's really, really key.
And you have to like check yourself so that you don't get drugged down into the the feeling. Because if
Yeah.
you're feeling great and this person's like wah wah wah, I mean it takes a lot of self-reliance, self-care to be like, okay, I'm gonna just listen
Mhm.
and and that's really goes a long way.
Yep.
Because it's going to pass. It truly is like the weather. It's a perfect analogy. This storm comes in, the person has to wrestle with it and get through it, and then it passes, and the water calms down, and there's clarity. And you know what? There's no mark on the ocean from that storm.
Yep.
So we are that resilient as well. And you might think in your moment, like, oh, this is such a bad mark on me, for having this problem. But it's like, we can tell you, we've seen so much, all of our 20s, all of our 30s. Like, do you know how many mistakes and uncomfortable
around
situations,
the boating,
or just in our lives? Like, but we're still here. We're still saying, you know what, you're great. Let's keep going. Like, live and learn, forget it, whatever it is, move on. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
prop each other up. That's pretty important.
So I think that's it. I've just, seen some sailing channels. I haven't watched a ton, but I feel like this is a subject people touch on for like a minute.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to delve in and say, this is how we've done it. Because
this is what works for us.
Yeah, I'm very proud of how much time we spent together.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the fact that we, with the first big cruise, it didn't, I wouldn't say it didn't go well, but so many mistakes were made that could have been huge deal killers. I wrote a whole book about that. We've learned a lot along the way and tried to iterate and do things better.
Yeah, even the first time that we got this boat 2.5 years ago in St. Martin, I didn't have like the kind of hobbies thing worked out. I didn't have a writing practice. I was drinking coffee. You know
what? That just leads to something that occurred to me. Just what you just said is, if this is new to you, give yourself a little slack. Give yourself a little bit of time just to get used to it. Because likely it was a bit of a pressure cooker just getting onto the boat.
Likely,
selling all your stuff or putting it into storage, saying goodbye to loved ones for months on end.
Yeah.
So when you actually do move on board, cut yourself some slack, give yourself an adjustment period.
Yeah.
So, depending on who you talk to, some people say it takes between 6 months and a year. I've heard as much as 3 years of full-time living aboard before you're really settled into that groove.
Yeah.
So being patient with each other, being patient with yourself, that's definitely key.
Yeah, so I think knowing the challenges, this is the beauty of YouTube and learning from other people's experience, is that I hope hearing this, knowing this is coming for you as a potential, then you can it's just like with provisioning, stock it away, store it up, start, thinking about how is it I deal with challenges on land? Yeah. How is our relationship on land? Maybe we don't see each other very much because we're off working really hard. Well, maybe you need to increase the time together and really think about how you're going to be there for each other and for yourself, so these are all things you can be doing ahead of time.
Absolutely.
And I do think it's transferable to any couple on land.
Yeah, and I would say if anything, we've seen relationships fail on boats and folks go their different ways. But if anything, I feel like the overall effect of cruising on a relationship is positive. And that people, us included, afterwards are stronger for it.
I'm not moving. The boat is literally...
Well, these cameras are locked down, so...
It's crazy.
This is a full-on storm.
This is cool. I love being in a storm at the marina. I gotta say, I really do.
You feel so much safer.
You do. So I think that's good.
Yes.
So Nick's gonna run off and get his hair cut, which is kind of sad.
Really bad.
It's been fun to see.
Should I just say, hey man, only take off the ends, something like that?
Yeah, I think just so it's not in your eyes, because I do like the blonde.
Oh, okay. Well, he's gonna cut the blonde off. That sun bleach is
part of it.
gonna
There's still some up there.
So thank you everybody for tuning in, for subscribing to the channel. It's really awesome to have you on board. I would really appreciate that. Our podcast is now on iTunes. Before we did this rigmarole where you had to email us, or we emailed them when the podcast was ready.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
It's just like an alert.
So now you can go to iTunes and just search for the O'Kellys and you'll find us.
Yeah, if you do podcasts already, it'll just show up in your feed. And
we'll talk more about this stuff on the podcast and probably tell some stories that relate. All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.